Hey guys, this is the Public Accord coming to you with the monthly breakdown for June into July 2020. Man, starting in June, we saw a lot of things going on. Far left chop in Seattle started to get violent. Uh, by the end of Chaz, two black teens joyriding in a stolen car had over 300 bullets fired at them. Absolutely ridiculous. And some reports even further describe that the boy was pistol whipped after being shot and executed. Absolutely disgusting. So death rose through June. Washington Post actually reported that an armed driver who barreled towards protesters then shot someone before surrendering. Now, in reality, the video of the event clearly shows protesters swarming the shooter's vehicle, and one protester throws punches at the driver, and that was the one who got shot. First weeks of June also saw our first reports of polling showing a clear lead for Joe Biden. Polls came in at 41% for Trump versus 55% for Biden. Now, that's still rather strange. We see Trump with an enormous following on Twitter, huge numbers for social media interaction, and Biden's numbers, although good for social interaction, seem to be a bit lacking in followers and overall support, as far as organic growth. So it leaves the question to wonder, where is he getting all this social interaction from? Is this some type of, traffic appropriation and purchase program, some type of bot farm? Who knows? But we can actually pull up the Biden numbers here in a second. But I do want to point out just how atrocious it is that this violence has been continuing in such a steady rate. Here we are in an article from the beginning of June where a senseless shooting occurred, and it seems like every week it has only gotten worse. Um, so we're in a bit of a crisis here. There's a lot of uncertainty. The COVID crisis has people, literally hand to mouth as far as money goes. And we're in a bit of a bind because we don't see a whole lot of Republican intervention, nothing really popping up that they're doing to excite us and help us. You can see my other video about how I was denied the Paycheck Protection Program loan, despite being clearly eligible. This is a minor glitch in the system, and things like that happen. But ultimately, that leads to ordinary people like me and you getting absolutely screwed, and we get Robert De Niro, who just recently was found to have made or pulled in 28 million from the same type of loans because he owns a chain of restaurants. So I don't know what that's all about, but that's pretty ridiculous. Here we have the proof that numbers were reported that Trump had a lower polling between him and Biden. I do want to point out the Daily Beast here goes on to describe this and gives you actual numbers of the polls. So you can see there, right there, the poll of 1,259 adults. So you really want to pan that out. That's 1,250 people out of 300 million plus eligible, voters. Maybe not, so maybe 200 million, something like that. Likely voters, maybe 50 to 100 mil. Why in the world is a 1,250 person sample size valid for that? I just don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But I digress. It was reported as the polling numbers. It was a poll, and those were the numbers. And I'm sure that they had polled everyone that followed Democrats.com on every social media platform. Here's pointing out the followers here versus people that follow him. So 82.9 million on Donald Trump's account that follow him and see every tweet that goes out. And just to highlight a few social interaction points, you see good numbers here, but nothing close to the number of followers he has. Now, when this next part comes up with Biden, you'll notice that Biden actually has consistently better social interaction in form of likes on Twitter, which can be extrapolated across social platforms. Make the argument that Facebook may be a bit different, but usually these things are all coordinated, and the people that follow you on Twitter are the people that follow you on Facebook. So here we have Biden, and we see a significant difference. Biden had significantly fewer followers. So, I wasn't able to get the numbers there real quick. So here, just to point this out directly, following 26 and 6.7 million followers. So that's literally not even a tenth of Donald Trump's follower base. Um, why it's being reported on such a small sample size with God knows what variable conditions, and political alignment overall. Of course, they don't report that. They just report, ooh, poll good. So that's what we get. So, long story short, we have that in a nutshell for the beginnings of June, first week and a little. So, that's the framework that we have been set up upon. Now, we're going to dive into the fun part, and we're going to get to the Q drops. So, very interestingly, I also wanted to point out here that Joe Biden had somewhere in the thousands of tweets, and compared over to Donald Trump, you'll notice that Donald Trump has over 50,000 tweets that he has put out. So, as far as, just judging from a communicative point of view, Donald Trump has done way more in the history of his time on social media in terms of communicating with his base, whether they were political at the time that they found him or not, than Joe Biden has. And Joe Biden has decades in politics. So you think that the most important thing to him would be communicating with the constituency, making sure that, voices are heard. Obviously, he does not reach quite the same level as Donald Trump in that regard. Now we're on the Q drop. So here we go. We're moving in, and in 4441 and 4442, William Barr is in focus, saying that the wait will soon be over and that the wheels of justice are turning. Now, further, in 4442, Barr is referenced saying that there are familiar names being addressed. So I wanted to go over and make sure that every single one of these is properly cited. Here we have 4440, 4441. The wait will soon be over, and it has a link, so I always wanted to follow up, show you guys any valid links that are still in the Q drops, so that way you can see the source material yourself. This is from the Dirty Truth, and basically a moment from Fox where we discover for the first time in history organizations and national security agencies were used to spy on a political campaign. There was no basis for it. So he really doesn't care what they think, or whether they think it's political or not, basically. So that's the word from Barr himself. We also have in 4442, as I had said, that there are familiar names floating around. Familiar names. Now, what could that mean? I'd say that the Clintons would be number one on that list. It's literally become the joke of the nation. Watch out for anybody that comes into the prison, Ghislaine Maxwell, in a pantsuit. I saw as a clip, and it received thunderous laughter and applause. That's actually kind of scary. People just instantly associate the Clintons with death and suiciding people and murder. So, with that level of public understanding, we move forward. Uh, 4444 was a reminder that all assets are deployed. Now, commonly that's interpreted to mean that the Democrats have pulled out all stops to win this election as dirtily as possible. Uh, will the Democrats push second COVID-19 wave? Yes, we've already seen it. It's literally happening right now. We have second wave COVID reports across the country, spikes going up, new mandates for face masks here in PA, above and beyond what was, which doesn't make any sense. But nonetheless, this is going on. Now, into the second half of June, The Hill had reported that Governor Cuomo threatened Manhattan and the Hamptons with a reversal of the recent reopening order. So this plays right into that second wave, instigation that Q had dropped. Despite this hardline authoritarian tone, Cuomo had nothing to say about the Black Trans Lives Matter protests, where people in Brooklyn and the Bronx were literally shoulder to shoulder in the street. But He had said that he is warning today in a nice way the consequences of your actions, and he's not going to allow situations to exist that we know have a high likelihood of causing an increase in the spread of the virus. But yet these protests went on, like I said, shoulder to shoulder. No issue, no quarrel, no mention of it from Cuomo in a negative way at all. Of course, he's a politician. So, yeah, people send videos of the violations in the Hamptons and whatnot. Of course, you're dealing with literally the Karen capital of the world. If you're, in Long Island and you're getting your Dunkin' Donuts and you see one person without a mask, immediately the phone comes out and oh my God, can you believe? And spreads around like fire. So doesn't matter what context was. Doesn't matter if they were literally eating in a restaurant, as I point out in right here. We have Hell's Kitchen cited as one of the locations where people had sent in videos of folks not wearing masks. I'd like to know if you're say at a restaurant in Hell's Kitchen and you're spending so much money on your dining experience. What in the world makes you think that you are going to put a mask on in between courses? You know, you can't eat food or drink drinks with a mask on. So if the restaurants are open, you should expect people to not be wearing masks at their tables. This should not come as a surprise to you. Now back to Q's peek into the future. Over the second half of June here, we had shorter drops, but they were potent drops. 4460, for instance, they can no longer hide in the dark. This dropped on the 13th, as well as 4465, which simply stated biblical times. Now, in 4466, we get the Declaration of Independence, which I'd like everyone to take a moment and read in case you haven't read it recently. But I'm not going to read it aloud for you. I want you to look at this and just remember what it means to you. Think about what this document represents. This was the moment in history that our founding fathers had said, enough is enough. We're getting screwed out the back end over and over by our supposed government that isn't even here helping us in any capacity. And it's just tax, 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 tax. They deposed them. They said that these are the inherent rights of men and they will not be trampled on by tyrannical government. They protested. They threw tea overboard on the supply ships from over back across the pond, as it were. But ultimately, it devolved into a chaotic war scene. So, realistically, we are suffering a very similar scenario. Lots of discourse in the streets. Sorry, I'm also enjoying a cup of coffee. So you hear a little slurp here or there. Just know that I'm not trying to be unprofessional. I just need to be awake. So bear with me. Now, we got the Declaration of Independence. You guys, I trust, read that as I was going through. But I want to point out that on the 17th of June, okay, Q had posted a comparison of an anti-fascist party flag from World War II and Antifa's flag now. Now, the drop basically equates Antifa as the paramilitary force of the left. More interesting than that, a couple other topics got touched on mid through June. That would include the Democratic governors and whether it can be proven that they artificially increased COVID death numbers. And dropped 4477, but further on 618, Q posts about big tech cozying up to pedophiles as well, referencing a discussion to allow pedophiles to speak about attraction to kids on Twitter, which is absolutely abhorrent and disgusting. And we get into that next, but you can see here there's a lot of reference to the Democratic governors that allowed COVID patients into nursing homes when there were tons of facilities that could have very easily accommodated. Now, this really presses my buttons here, though. Here we have Twitter allowing pedophiles to discuss attraction to minors, and their stipulating point is that as long as it doesn't promote or glorify child sexual exploitation in any way. Could you explain to me how you are allowing pedophiles to discuss their attraction to minors in any way that does not promote or glorify child sexual exploitation? Because, in my understanding, that's what it is. It's disgusting. It shouldn't be allowed. This is obviously a loophole for some important people, or so they think, to get their way, and whatever the case is. The other reference was a Facebook survey that popped up randomly for people asking how you would react to an adult man asking a 14-year-old girl for sexual pictures. And it had a multiple choice selection, including options that allowed them to vote. The content should be allowed on Facebook, or the content should be allowed on Facebook. I would not mind seeing it. Oh God, what in the world are they trying to engineer here? But it's absolutely horrific. That was the literal question that was asked by Facebook in a poll to some of their users. Yeah, another option. The content should be allowed on Facebook, but I don't want to see it. Like any person in their right mind would want that to be allowed on Facebook at all. Besides the people doing it, the sick individuals that are engaging in this pedophilia. Terrifying. So now that we have that well hashed out, we're coming into 4483, which is simply the thin blue line flag. Uh, Very timely, of course, being that there have been so many violent attacks on cops and riots and protests, quote unquote. But ripping statues down, throwing things at cops, consistently agitating, shooting fireworks at cops, shooting fireworks into federal buildings, trying to set fires, and killing an elk statue because that had a real lasting point, right? Uh huh. So Fox actually had dropped this story about the third shooting at the Chop. I'm just finding it here for a moment. Uh, Basically, last full week of June was just as marred with violence as the first week of June, if not more. Now, Fox had reported this story, but further details are now available, and of course, I'll share with you as we go through here. But here it is, another shooting reported at Seattle's Chop. One in, I believe it's critical condition, serious condition. So thank God for that. A little better than critical. But here we are, literally 48 hours after one other fatal shooting, and another shooting breaks out in the Chop. It was the third at the moment. It was, again, like I said, late June, and it was not addressed by Durkin at all. She did nothing about any of these killings until they came to her house. She could not have cared less. 5 people had died at that point because there was absolute lawlessness and a blind eye turned. And only when these protesters consistently arrived at her doorstep did she begin to get angry and try to basically shut the Chop down, which is absolutely disgusting again. Now, so long story short about this one was that the cameraman who caught the shooting on camera was actually detained by members of the John Brown Gun Club, which is a branch of the Chaz Security, and that reporter's phone was briefly taken. Mind you, his phone was returned and he was not harmed, but nonetheless, he was basically held up for having been there and shot footage of it by regular citizens just with guns. So kind of crazy. From here, Q proofs come in a big way with the Berman call out. And then immediately, almost, Berman was fired from there. So, how the evidence against Hillary Clinton got back into the hands of the Justice Department basically played out in drops 4484 and 4487, where Q confirms that POTUS removed Berman at Barr's advisement. So we're looking right now at all of the importance here. Like, why do we even care about Berman? Well, he was in charge of justice in New York, specifically the district where Wiener's laptop was being kept. Uh, Information, or damning evidence, if you want to call it that, contained thereon about the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton. So here we are, him apparently being a holdout, and this is his statement when he was being replaced in a legal way. And he basically got on a grandstanding podium saying, "I'm not going anywhere. You have to make me." And Barr did. Barr did it very quickly and very to the point. So while Berman thought that his happy little statement here would be taken as a righteous, upstanding individual, but he actually pointed out right there, favor, free of favor. Yeah, right. This would not have come to this if you weren't taking favors from serious influencers. But long story short, the guard refusing to step down, and lo and behold, we get this response not even a day later, where, yep, here we go. 4487, AG Barr asked POTUS to fire Berman. And he did. Look at this statement. Barr is an absolute beast. Barr the Bar, I like to call him, the bear, because he kind of reminds me of like a really friendly, like, bear cartoon, or like, John Goodman-esque type, or John Candy. But in any case, great guy. He's doing all the right things here, and basically said your political grandstanding is, your choice over public service. So I asked the president to fire you, and he did, and concluded the letter. Just a savage, man. Absolute savage. I love Attorney General Barr. I hope that he is in the public eye for years to come. All praise. So in 4487, we just saw 4489 is a reiteration. All assets are deployed to prevent you from finding out about their corruption. It's very, very telling. This is all a description of what would happen if a COVID second wave broke out. Why would they break a second wave? Why would a second wave be important to focus in on the media with? Why would it be important to keep a second wave going? Well, Q lists all of the reasons and all of the things that we could possibly expect from this, or what would be beneficial coming out of this for the powers that are doing it. And lo and behold, it seems to be Democrats consistently benefit from all of this dummy hysteria, at least, in their perceived reality. I can't imagine sensible people seeing the trouble that has come from Antifa and other fringe elements from the left and saying, oh, yeah, I absolutely want to put these people in charge, going out and voting for Biden. If there is anywhere close to a race here, anywhere close to a competition, I assure you, it's not because of valid numbers. Donald Trump has this in spades, according to his, like I said, his follow rate, his, organic user base that follows him. Quite telling. So we'll see if the silent majority pushes through super hard like it did in 2016. And Barr even put in a little extra note here on this Q drop, pointing out that halting travel, and that Durham had cited COVID-19 health concerns as the reason why he couldn't come in to talk. Oh, what a shame! What do you want to delay, man? What's so what's so scary to you that you can't just pop in with a mask, huh? I'd like to know. He's afraid he's going to get cuffed and thrown in the back of a van and sent down to Gitmo. The rest of them. So 4492 and 4493 were linked. Again, we're on the topic of Democratic governors pushing COVID patients into nursing homes. 4492, as you can see, is a banner draped on the side of an overpass saying, Cuomo killed my mom. And here's the link in that drop. Basically, just a very reputable Yale medical website here. It's Yale School of Medicine, describing basically the influenza susceptibility of elderly people. Now, again, I've heard that we have had 0 influenza deaths reported in some places. thus lending to the theory that the COVID deaths are being propped up by the influenza deaths. But, again, I don't have those numbers. I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't know about that 100%. I'm just taking it off of what I'm reading here. Second link in the drop was that basically just pointing out that third degree murder is not really a thing in most states, but some of these Democratic states, such as Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Florida, um, yeah, those three states specifically have this third degree murder, and it doesn't require intentional cause. Unintentional cause, uh, if you unintentionally cause someone else's death while committing a dangerous act, you are guilty of third degree murder if it can be proven. And I think that may just apply to a lot of the governors that put, COVID patients in nursing homes. And if it is proper charge, it should count for each death associated with the dangerous act. Next, we have this one, which is ridiculous. In my home state, in 4493, the Democratic governors pushing COVID patients into nursing homes was horrible in itself. But in 4493, we get the story of how the health secretary of Pennsylvania, Rachel Levine, took her own mom out of a nursing home as PA began pushing COVID patients in. So this person, we'll say, took her own mother out of the nursing home at 95 years old, knowing that this shit was going to be happening and that it was going to potentially risk her own mother, but didn't advise anyone in Pennsylvania to do the same. Just simply put a blanket statement out that she's looking out for all of us and trying to help. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, okay? At current rate, we have like the highest rate of deaths associated with COVID in the senior population. And that's absolutely disgusting because you and your governor pushed them into those nursing homes. Just ridiculous. On the 22nd of June, Q called on the U.S. For something in particular. 4497, digital soldiers, get ready. Just a little meme, talks about getting prepared, stock up your meme folder, get all your digital warfare ammo stocked up and ready because this is a different kind of war, information warfare. We have to counter the mainstream media lie push. Now, here we go. Target practice, Democratic governor. He gives you basically Q dropped this phenomenal resource that explains how these Democratic governors are absolutely damned for what they did here. And yeah, he wanted us to go out, or Q. I'm saying he, but really it's they. It's a collection of people. So don't think for a second if I say he and don't catch myself that I mean that it's just one person. Please know that Q is a collection of government top officials, private sector high ups, people that are working for the alliance of humanity against this cabal that has left us in shambles, stealing away our purchasing power, hoarding away our wealth, and trying to foment this revolution. So we're currently at the ready. We see that right here we've got Democrat governors, seriously damned. It's seen, and there are things being done about it. The 24th of June, though, was an absolutely historic day for Q and for the public. Q led in with this one, 4508, meme of Obama in black and white with federal charges above his head, including seditious conspiracy and treason. Now, Q asks on this one, add Biden? Memes are important. So later on, down the line, and I didn't include it in the drop because I just wanted to drop, the information here. Later on, a couple of weeks, there was a Biden black and white picture with the same charges listed above his head, and they were, posted together. So, you can know that someone added Biden, and that's all good. But that wasn't the historic part here, okay? The historic part was in 4509. Q issues a call to arms and clarifies what the civilian aspect of this military-civilian co-op is all about. Uh, Digital soldiers, take the oath and serve your country. I have done this. My video has been retweeted by Illinocal, as I call it. I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce it, but now the next one, and governors are not immune to lawsuits. 4510 Q asked the Patriots to take the oath. My mistake. So on the 26th, Q posts 4529 right there, talking about the governors that aren't immune to lawsuits out of negligent disregard of state laws. So we can see this is a serious focus here, probably leading up to something from the Justice Department talking about how these Democratic governors are going to be held liable for this. This is a horrible atrocity. This is you want to get really technical about it. If you think about the meaning of a genocide, a specific targeted group of people, that you are targeting for death, I mean, you can make the argument validly that they attempted genocide against the elderly. And, that I'm sure comes with a severe penalty. Now, 4529, like I said, is governors, and it's a main focus throughout the course of the month. The Democratic governors are screwed. In 4530, we will not fail. This is the Illinocal that I mentioned. Q created a literal phenomenon here. Q posted a tweet from a Twitter account, Elonochle, Elonochle, who was sharing people's oath videos. Now, since Q dropped his account and what he was doing, pointing out how great it was, he has literally not stopped sharing oaths from that day. Every single day, all throughout the day, all he does is share oath videos. Granted, a little bit of humor, a little bit of recap or analysis of what's going on, but mostly just a full-on feed of this. People taking their oath, standing up for the Constitution, and saying that they're going to protect the country no matter what, which is absolutely amazing. Elonochle has shared over 4,000 oath videos according to the account, and has largely helped keep #TakeTheOath spreading and trending. So, phenomenal job on that. I hope that you continue on forever, buddy. It's a truly amazing thing that you're doing, and Q saw it, and that's why we all know about you, brother or sister. I really don't know. You might be a sister, might be a brother, but either way, you're a patriot, and I thank you for everything that you're doing. Now, on the 29th of June, Chaz had its 5th shooting in a week, and we were introduced also to the McCloskeys, who proved that even if you bear arms on your own private land, when a literal mob moves through illegally, there'll still be insane leftists that call for your arrest. How about that? So here we go, literally the day, within the week of a shooting at the Chaz where 2 people were shot up to death, including a 16-year-old black boy, by the way. So if Black Lives Matter at this location, please tell me why you're shooting unprovoked at African-American child. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's really, really sad if you think about it. But this was the instance I had mentioned in the beginning where apparently the shooters, or a shooter among the crew, had gone up to the driver, stated, "Oh, you're still alive? Well, how about if I pistol whip you?" or something to that degree. Began beating the child, or the driver, I should say, and a shot was heard in the video where, it was not clear whether it was an execution shot or not, but it is largely presumed that it was. Absolutely disgusting. The things that are happening in our country right now are not indicative of who we are. This is a paid shill operation to devalue our own interpretation of who we are. We think that the masses are idiots and that people are stupid overall and that this is normal course or par. No, it is not. This is a deliberate attack by a few individuals that have a lot of power in money and exposure, and they recruit idiots to do their bidding that serves a larger purpose, which is terrible. Now, here are the McCloskeys. These are the guys like you and me, all right? Now, granted, these are very well-to-do personal injury lawyers, and their property is phenomenal. They live in a gated community. They have it, you know, nice, okay? Which is cool. I hope we all get there someday, and that we all work hard to make America phenomenal beyond any expectation or hope. And that we all do well in our own stead, and whatever the case is. But these people were just defending their property. They literally were just standing outside on their porch with guns, ready for the event that the mob moved in on their property and started vandalizing, destroying, or threatening them, which was reported they were doing already, threatening to kill the family dog, threatening to kill the family. And they stood up for themselves. Yet this prosecutor in St. Louis is standing saying that he will not abide firearms being aimed at peaceful protesters. Yeah, whatever, dude. You know what? When you have a group of 500 people on your lawn that just broke through your gate, you come talk to me about how much of a peaceful, loving protest it is. Okay? And I don't want to hear a word until that happens, pal. I think these people were 100% in the right. I think it's a miracle that nobody got shot, because they were obviously, they being the protesters, were obviously on private land. They broke a historic gate to bits. They literally peeled it apart. I don't even know how, but ultimately it was destroyed beyond repair, and they had to get a new one put in. And they marched on private property. So legally, yeah, I mean, in a castle doctrine state, or stand your ground, those people all were very subject to being shot. And it could have been worse than it was. Thank God for the control and bided thinking that occurred in that heated moment. So here we see that this suspect, that in Provo, literally, again, same course of the week, walked up to a driver of a vehicle as the crowd swarmed the driver in his vehicle, or basically he's trying to get away. Saw the protest, trying to get away, make a left turn off the highway or whatever. Protesters followed him down, literally running, hitting the car, causing, the usual ruckus that they do whenever someone is near them. And this person particularly went up to the passenger side of the vehicle, aimed a pistol through it, and shot the driver. Luckily, in a non-critical location. The driver was seen in the video still not gassing and booking like any normal human being would be after getting shot, literally. This person was good enough in their heart to not want to cause further harm, that they carefully navigated out at a reasonable speed and went to the hospital for their injuries. But my God, what in the world is happening when we have people just driving their car trying to get away that are getting shot, and the people that are trying to defend themselves in their homes in legal right of being able to shoot are now being investigated for crimes just for having their weapons out? It's atrocious. This is not what this country was founded on. Seen trying to make a turn onto Center Street. Several protesters crowded the vehicle. Said ran to the passenger side of the SUV, pointed a handgun to the driver, shot one round through the window, and shot again as it was trying to leave. So this guy also had started, had pistol whipping another car afterwards. So thank God he's in custody. What an awful human being. I hope that he goes away for a long time and gets to think long and hard about randomly shooting individuals driving their cars. So, lastly, on the news front here, we have Chicago issuing 1,200 more officers on duty in preparation of the 4th of July. Now, mind you, Chicago has seen an uptick in violence, just the same as New York and many of these other places that have had protests and riots. But, oh my Lord, 1,200 more officers on the streets for 4th of July weekend. Could you guys explain why, if you had 1,200 more officers available at any given point this past week, why you didn't issue the order a bit sooner in lieu of the huge uptick in violent crime? Because it would have been nice to have maybe 600 to 800 of those officers available a little earlier than 4th of July. This had come out days in preparation of the 4th of July, but it seems as though that was the marked event that they expected trouble. there was already trouble. Let's be honest here. There was trouble beyond capacity to contain. So if you had more officers at your disposal, and you had the National Guard at your disposal through the president, it's a shame and a sin that you didn't use them. Now, Q starts rolling here, and bear with me because this is a lot, but this is the last of the drop recap before the latest news for this past week into July. Now, in 4537 and 4538, we talk COVID in China. 4537 tells us the second wave COVID hysteria is going to end abruptly after the 2020 elections. Now, this is a very easy to predict scenario where the second wave is so damning, so troublesome that we all have to have extra civil liberties imposed upon, or encroached upon, I should say. But as soon as the election is over, watch it disappear. Now, in 4538, we find that China is working on a new virus, citing an outbreak of a new kind of swine flu, potentially, or just the fact that it existed is reported, but who knows what's really being done in Wuhan labs and the like across the world. So here we are. Is China working on starting another virus pandemic? Could this be the real second wave? Could it be a different virus entirely? I don't know. In 4540, it's just a PSA. The news is fake. The insurgency is real. Okay? So just a quick, potent drop again. 4545, though, was a doozy. It's a unifying message for patriots that we are united against the invisible enemy of all humanity. And I'm going to let you read through this because this was a phenomenal drop. Really inspired confidence and love for the country and the potential that we have as a people to be united and get over this shit together, to denounce this race baiting and divisive scenario that all of the mainstream media news channels are forcing upon us. If we come together, as one of the stories I'll share shortly shows, I think that we are going to have this in spades. And by this, I mean taking back our country and the world from these horribly, horribly misguided individuals. So we have a call to arms. We have all, or not all of us, but hopefully many of us have taken the oath and are prepared for the mission at hand. This is kind of like your, before battle, saber rattle war cry. This drop right here should get you really stoked to do something. And, that's really why I want you to take it in. Because if America falls, so does the world. Right there. That is a very key point. We are leading the world in so many regards that if we take a hit, it hits everything. And that is what they are counting on. They want to create destabilization. And it's not going to work because we're stronger than that. We've proven it through decades of depression. We've proven it through decades of war. And now this. So we will persevere and we will take back what is rightfully ours. There's no way that we are going to sit idly by knowing full well that these people are trafficking and abusing children, high off their asses in positions of extreme power with bloodthirst. It is an ugly scenario, and we are going to fix it, I assure you. Now, as we move further from that point, though, 4546, one more step on the damning story of Democratic governors risking citizens to pump up their death numbers. This one says clearly that they sent positive COVID patients from Mexico to California. And beyond that, William Barr, found in 4549, is being targeted for impeachment now. How crazy is that? MSM, Big Tech, Antifa, and Democrats in 4553 are explained in terms of their tactics. What is fascism? What is censorship? have all of these calls to define these things. And then later in the drop, you'll see they have all of these recent events tied into these methods of control, these control systems that the government has been using for literally generations. But it's all painted clear as day in this post. All of these tactics are just explained in black and white here. If you don't see what's going on, you're blind at this point. So know that this is what's going on in our country right now. This is the coup. This is the insurgency that is happening behind the scenes of the mainstream media, who would claim that Antifa doesn't exist, who would claim that right-wing extremists are the only ones that are shooting pistols off at random protesters, peaceful protesters. But no, in fact, we see just the opposite. The leftists are the extreme and violent ones coming from the crowds of the disguised Black Lives Matter protest. They're able to infiltrate that movement and then enact their dubious plans under pretty much entirely, disguised purpose. They seem to be a Black Lives Matter protester. They're covered with a face mask. There's nothing to show that they are a fringe element or a specific radical group, except, of course, for the extensive work of the Justice Department, who will be prosecuting many of these individuals, and one of which, a ringleader, we'll discuss in a moment. So it's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Now here we find a very interesting, June 1st drops 4544 and 4555 are linked. 4544 describes that BLM donation campaigns are an elaborate front to funnel money to Biden, Democratic promoters, and other Democratic service providers. Now, it describes basically what we've been looking at here. And does BLM donated money end up in Sharpton's or other people's pockets? Well, of course it does. And how do we know it does? Because the next post, 4555, clarifies exactly why. Now, we see this happening for what reason? Well, there are campaign limits on donations. So how do you get a large amount of money to a candidate if you want to? You go through something like this, a total sham front. This is Act Blue top vendor recipients. Act Blue is the facilitator for the Black Lives Matter site, as will be clicked here. You see, this is the face on the internet for Black Lives Matter movement. And the button blue, donate, allows you to go to this secure page. But this is not the same domain. This is now Act Blue secure. Why is it Act Blue? Oh, I'll tell you why it's Act Blue. Because Act Blue is the Democratic, money mover. It is the political action committee, I'm sure, that channels money from causes to, politicians and the interests thereof. So, Black Lives Matter in itself is not getting this money. You may as well just be donating to the Democratic Party, because that's exactly where the money is going. Here is the proof on opensecrets.org that Act Blue, number 2, Biden for president, received $119 million from Act Blue. Think about that, $119 million. How much of that was for Black Lives Matter? How much of that was donated for the purpose of ending racism in America, only to be funneled to Democratic interests so that they can retain power and maintain their secrecy in regards to all of their corruption? Tragic and disgusting. So we have next 4561, where we see that, oh man, what do you know? What a coincidence. Turns out that Biden raised more than Trump in June. Seems as though, maybe Q might have called this. It seemed like almost a surprise even to Q. Like, what a coincidence, Like, oh, they just happened to drop this article right after the drop where I talked about how this money gets channeled from Black Lives Matter to Biden. Yeah, it couldn't have been better timing if you tried, which very well may have been the case. Q always seems to do these things on purpose, and there's always so many different layers of truth embedded in the drops. Like this is all just very surface level stuff, but codes and secret messages are embedded everywhere. So always look and think. Now this is the biggest one, man. This is the beautiful one. 4562 red alert. Ghislaine Maxwell arrested. Phenomenal. Epstein's partner in crime is finally behind bars, and we are going to make her sing like a canary. As long as we can keep the guard up and make sure that Clinton's goons don't somehow manage to offer before we get all of the information we want. But I'm sure we will take care of that. 4563, we learned that the feds arrested a ringleader, as I had mentioned, that was attempting to destroy the Andrew Jackson statue. Now, his name was is Jason Charter. He's not dead yet. And the drop explains that he has ties to Antifa. So, this is not just some imaginary fringe element of the left that exists only on social forums. This is a coordinated militant attack and well strategized because it's death by 1,000 cuts, as Tim Pool always says. Death by 1,000 cuts. They don't do a big enough thing to set off red flags, but they do a little bit and a little bit. Now, in finality for the month, though, drops 4, 5, 6, 7 on until 4579 are all damning photos and records of associates of Ghislaine Maxwell, most notably referencing Bill Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, Harvey Weinstein, Epstein, and Prince Andrew. Now, also included was a flight log of folks who have traveled to Lolita Island, as well as still shots from videos of the dungeons found on the island. I'm going to take a moment to let you really read over and appreciate some of the names and their fame and status once we get to the point of looking at this list, because it is something. Here we have just a quick oath video. Someone that Q just decided to show off probably has a significance beyond what we're looking at. We see that often with Q, that we see these things and we don't really think much of it. Oh, just a guy, but there might be something more to it that we'll learn later. So here we have Trust Dan Scavino. Trust Dan. Seems like Dan Scavino is the reference of Dan and why the Q proof was late, not long ago. Blame Dan, was said. So Dan Scavino there. This is the video that featured Chester Bennington, Linkin Park's music, which there are rumors spreading that he was John Podesta's illegitimate son, and that he was sexually abused by John Podesta growing up, and that ultimately led to his mental condition and suicide. Again, these are all unconfirmed and outlandish, but more truth will come. Here we see Bill Clinton a number of times with a number of young ladies, and in situations and events in close proximity with Epstein and Maxwell. And just damning stuff, man. Damning stuff. And I'm sure that this is all just a prelude to what's going to be coming, because there's no way in heck that we are going to sit and see all of this and have it mean nothing or be nothing. And here's that list. Take a look at this. Adam Lang. We've got Anderson Cooper, Barack Obama, Ben Affleck, Beyonce, Bill Clinton, Bill Murray, Brian Affleck, Chris Tucker, Chrissy Teigen, Dan Schneider, David Koch, Demi Moore. We've got James Franco in there. We've got Emmy Taylor. We've got just a slew. Who I didn't see in here, though, was Hillary Clinton. We got Oprah Winfrey right there. Oh, my. People are going to lose their minds. We got Tom Hanks, Will Ferrell, Will Smith, Woody Allen. Woody Allen makes sense. But Steven Tyler, Stephen Colbert. Oh, people hate that one. Seth Green. He was always a little off. Jim Carrey. Just tons of mainstream Hollywood elite. And, people that you would never expect. Bill Murray and Oprah Winfrey and Tom Hanks. Pedophile. Closet pedophiles. If this is why they traveled to the Lolita Island. I mean, why in the world else would you travel to Lolita Island? I don't know. Wanda Sykes, geez Louise, what a what a trip. So there we have the list of individuals as I described. I don't know what to say, man. That's a dungeon, a literal dungeon where girls were kept so that they could be sex slaves to the rich and powerful. In America, these people live in America. These disgusting pedophile perverts control America and the world, as we see with the royal family and Prince Andrew here. These are not just your, run of the mill, basement dwelling, neck bearded pedophiles talking to girls in AOL chat rooms. These are high level officials who thought that they would be absolutely untouchable for the rest of their lives. And here we have it. All of this information is coming out. All of the truth is starting to pour out. And I'm sure they're sweating bullets thinking about the trouble that they're going to be in and the price that they're going to pay for the sins they've committed. So here we are moving into July 4th. July 4th headlines. All right. We've got The Guardian that stated that two women are injured as car drives through Seattle protest crowd. But again, this is an extreme case of framing in media. Protesters were on the freeway with a van and a car as a buffer that were parked sideways and the air let out of the tires. And just before that blockade, there is an on-ramp to the freeway. Now, just behind the cars, where you cannot see them from the on-ramp, there are the protesters who are just moments ago dancing the Cupid Shuffle, happily showing their solidarity with Black Lives Matter and the protests on the freeway, dancing around like fools. And lo and behold, someone gets on the on-ramp. We don't know why, we don't know how, but comes barreling, 55, 65 miles an hour to get onto the freeway, sees the car in the van, swerves out of the way, and a mess of protesters are right behind. Boom! Two protesters hit and flown 20 feet into the air and, of course, hospitalized. I believe that one died. So, tragedy it is, but man, what do you think is going to happen when you're dressed all in black, parading on the goddamn freeway, right out of sight behind parked cars the wrong way on a freeway, man? Like, that's just dumb. Don't do things like this. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. It's absurd that this has to be explained to people, but I feel that terrible for that guy who might have been just completely confused and forced into the situation of smacking into people, and now he's being charged too. He's being charged for vehicular manslaughter. So there we have that. Now, unfortunately, another tragedy unfolded in Atlanta this time. An 8-year-old girl was shot by the armed militia that was patrolling near the Wendy's where Rayshard Brooks was killed. Now, this Atlanta mayor is a tragedy, saying that now enough is enough. Now, haven't there been like over 40 killings in your city just since this all started? Lady, enough is enough was enough literally weeks ago. You have done nothing to prevent this 8-year-old from being murdered in cold blood by armed militants in the streets. And here it is. Now enough is enough because an 8-year-old was shot at the Wendy's because you continually let this dumb shit happen, lady. I hope that we vote every single one of these people out and blacklist them for every stead of profession onward. You people do not deserve to be integrated into society. You do not represent society. You do not protect society. So why in the world should society embrace you at all? You had every opportunity to call in the National Guard, and out of pride and hubris, you said no. You didn't want the National Guard. You could handle it yourself. Well, look at how many people are dead. Look at this poor 8-year-old who had all of life ahead of her, dead, because nothing was done, and armed militias were allowed to romp around the Wendy's under the guise of protest. Horrible. So, while we have that happen, a light of hope did shine through on July 5th. We had a message of unity come, reported by dailymail.com. armed BLM activists and right-wing groups come together at Richmond Open Carry March in united show of support of the Second Amendment. So we know that there were at least 200 people that participated in this event, and that the event served as a dual memorial for Breonna Taylor and for Duncan Lemp, who were both killed by police in no-knock raids that were executed on the wrong house. Now, I'd like to take a moment to remind you how ridiculous it is that we have the no-knock raid at all. So you're telling me that there are scenarios where dangerous individuals are holed up in their homes or their residences or wherever they may be, and that the only possible way that you can apprehend them or kill them is by sneaking into their residence with intent to kill on sight without declaring that you are the police. There are numerous cases of no-knock raids where people have shot and killed police officers because they didn't know they were police officers, and then they were either released without charge in some cases, but in other cases they were charged and actually found guilty of murder. That is ridiculous. If you are a police officer or a unit of police officers and you're going to be entering even a hostile environment, you must declare you are the police. That has to be a rule. We will not stand for no-knock raids where all black dressed individuals of SWAT can be just as easily mistaken as assailants or robbers. We need to know who the police are, goddammit. This is not a hard concept to figure out. I don't know why it would be, but whatever. And we've also had statues ripped down and vandalized. George Washington had red paint sprayed all over him. We had Jefferson. We had Andrew Jackson. And most horribly, Frederick Douglass recently was vandalized and torn off of his base. Frederick Douglass, the famous abolitionist,